Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Namaduhu wa nasalli ala Rasulil Kareem. Viewers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created all things for the benefit of the human being. But the human being He created for His own worship. If we look at the creation, we see all the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. The sun, the moon, the stars, the crops, the fruits, the vegetables, the animals. They serve the human being, they benefit the human being. The sun does not get any benefit, but the sun benefits the human. Life goes on, the air, the oxygen, the water, the plants. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created all this for the benefit of the human being. If the human being was not on this planet, the life would still go on. The crops would still grow, the fruits will still be there, the animals would still be there. But the human being is there for the benefit. The human being enjoys the benefits of all the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has assigned a special status to this human being. The human being is the prime creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He has the potential to be better than the angels, but he also has the potential to be worse than the animals because of the fact that he has a choice. He has the choice to do good or evil. He has the choice to obey Allah or to disobey Allah. The angels do not have that choice. The angels are obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they do not have the needs that human beings have. The human beings have a choice, and they also have needs. And when they choose to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they become better than the angels. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His wisdom decided to create the human being and then sent him guidance through His books and His prophets. And throughout history we know that there have been human beings who have been guided to the right path despite all the obstacles, the hardships. The best example of that is the prophets. They faced all types of hurdles, obstacles, trials, tribulations, but they were successful. They were able to uphold the truth. On the other hand, we saw the other type of human being who was creating problems, and we know what happened to them. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us through the Quran, and we see from our observation how many benefits the human being has, how many things he enjoys in this life. Just see the human being, the own physical body, his eyes, his ears, the whole system within his body, the heart, the lungs. Imagine all these things that serve the human being was created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who knew the needs of the human being. He knew this human being would need lungs, need heart, kidneys, he would need eyes, ears, the purpose for which he was being sent into this earth. The birth required the use of these, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created conditions favorable for that. It's just like an examiner gives an exam to the student and gives the students paper, pen, whatever is needed to take the exam. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created perfect conditions for the examination of this creature, this human being. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him all the benefits. He gave him all the time, whatever time, because when an examiner gives an examinee time, he tells the examiner how much time he has. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the human being 24 hours. He created days, He created weeks and nights, He created years. And He told him the test will be on till it leaves this earth, this planet. But He also told him that there is a time when all this is going to be evaluated, when he will be graded, when he'll get the grade, but the grade will be given to him in his next life. Here he has all the things that are essential for taking the test. So human being has been given a certain time period. That's why Allah has decreed death. If this life was the final judgment, then there would be no need for death. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created this life not as final judgment. That's why the Quran talks about Allah being the master of the day of judgment. And the judgment will be announced when the human being returns to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's important to understand that the human being has been given time only for the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All the things that serve human being are there to make him understand, make him realize that this is all temporary. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given him all the essential things that will make him successful. No human being can complain that he does not have the tools, he doesn't have the equipment, he doesn't have whatever it takes to be successful. Allah has given him a mind. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given him the resources. When a child is born into this world, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates conditions for that child to be brought up, creates conditions favorable for the upbringing of the child. And when the child is able to learn, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives more opportunities. And with the mind that a child has, he has the potential to be guided in the right direction or also go in the wrong direction. The human being is the most ignorant of the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He comes into this world without knowing anything. And then it's a responsibility. Allah puts a test on the parents, whether they will guide him in the right direction or not. And this is where the education of the human being becomes very important. If the parents think that the only role, the only responsibility they have is to give the human being education or the child education for the needs of this world, then they've only done part of the job. But if they give the education to this child, which will serve his needs in this life and also beyond, then they have done their duty towards the child. So when a child grows older, he becomes personally responsible. First, it's the responsibility of the parents, and once he reaches a certain age where he is now able to make decisions by himself, then he becomes personally responsible for himself and also for the others. So throughout his life, it's a life of responsibility. What Islam teaches is responsibilities. The parents are responsible for the children. The children, when they grow older, they become responsible for their parents. They become responsible for the communities. The ruler, the head of the state, is responsible for the people who are under him, and so on. So it's all responsibilities. It's a life of great responsibility, duties. And the greatest duty, of course, is the duty to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Creator. So as Allah says, I created not the man and jinn except for my worship. And worship is what Allah has taught through His prophets. So no human being can say that I know how to worship Allah. So I worship Allah in my own way. So the worship has to be according to the way that was taught by the Prophet of Allah. And every prophet was the guide for that time. All the prophets who came throughout history, they said something like 124,000 prophets came throughout history. And wherever they went, the people who were living during that time, they will be judged by the standard of the prophet of that time. And if they came up to that standard, then they would be successful. Since Rasulullah ﷺ is the last prophet, all the people coming into this world will be judged from the standard which was established by him. The worship that he did, or the worship he showed, that will be the worship for the people who are going to come till the end of times. So people have to learn what is the worship that is acceptable to Allah. Just like when a student enrolls in a university or college, some institution, they have to know what are the standards. They cannot pick any book they like and decide to make a test for themselves and grade the test by themselves. There are some standards, there are some rules. So the institution tells them, these are the standards, and if you pass these standards, then you will get a successful grade. So by the same token, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has set the standards, the criteria of success. And people have the responsibility to find out what the standards are. Just like when students go to university or college, wherever, they find out the standards. They are always aware how they're going to be judged and what is the grading system. So when it comes to judgment by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they have to know what are the standards by which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to judge. So persons cannot make their own decisions as to what is right and what is wrong, because Allah is the ultimate, the best of teachers, the best of guides. He's the one who knows the future. He is the one who knows the past. His knowledge is perfect. His knowledge is complete. So we cannot replace His knowledge by our own imperfect, defective, flawed knowledge and decide for ourselves what is right and what is wrong. This is one of the very big mistakes people have made in the past and they still make. We know what is right, we know what's wrong, because the human knowledge is so limited. It doesn't even know what's going to happen tomorrow in the future. Every human being has to understand that his knowledge cannot be the way of guidance. So when it comes to guidance, he has to look to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Creator. And the success comes by obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah's guidance is the best guidance. And the people in the past who ignored that, they ignored the warnings of the prophets, came to grief. They came to brought the destruction upon themselves. So the best way to live is to spend one's life according to the teachings of this book of that time. And since the Quran is now the book for all times, this book has to be studied. This is the need of every single human being. And this book has to be explained. This is the purpose of human existence. Many times when people go to educational institutions, they think that the purpose is to become doctors, engineers, lawyers, accountants, whatever. That is the purpose of this world. But that is not the purpose. Allah did not send us into this world to become doctors and professionals. Allah sent us into this world to prepare for the akhirah. And of course, one can serve in different capacities. One can serve in this life in different, whatever role Allah has given a person, whether he is a politician or he's a judge or he's an engineer, whatever role, he's being tested in that, whether he's going to obey Allah or he's going to disobey Allah. So the ruler is being tested from his standards. The judge is being tested from his standards. The business person is being judged from his standards. So all these people who have been given these roles in this life, this is not their purpose. This is just a way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala testing them in different capacities. The master is being tested and the servant is being tested. The rich are being tested and the poor are being tested. The healthy are being tested and the sick are being tested. The men are being tested and women are being tested. So all people in this world are being tested according to whatever capabilities Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them. So one should not look at this life as a place of permanence, as a place of reward and punishment. Allah did not design this as that. This is a very common mistake people make, that we are here only to enjoy ourselves. We are here only for pleasures, temporary pleasures. The people work hard for years and years and find out that their efforts did not bring fruit, and they go into depression because they were not told the right purpose. The reason why people go into depression is because they're not getting what they are expecting out of life. They have high expectations and they don't meet those expectations and they go into depression. But the people who understand what is the purpose of life, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created this life for a reason, then they do not have that depression. Allah is testing them in all the situations. Sometimes they get what they wanted, and sometimes they do not get what they wanted. But they understand in both situations, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is testing. If they get what they wanted and they are grateful for the benefits, for the rewards, if they are grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then they pass the test. And if they do not get what they wanted, what they desired, but they are patient and they believe that this is also from Allah, and they pass that test too. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts people in different situations. Like the Prophet Ayyub alayhi salam, he was tested with sickness. He was sick for years, but he did not complain. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was testing him in that situation. And he passed the test even after having gone through sickness. It is said when he became well, people asked him, do you remember the days of sickness when you were sick? He said, those days are very good. He said, they were surprised to hear that. I said, how was that? He said, every day Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would ask me, Ayub, my servant, how are you feeling? And there was so much sweetness in that I forgot all the misery that I had. And he said, since I became well, Allah has not asked me for that. Allah has not asked me this. So just imagine that even in a time of great difficulty, a great sickness, great big disease, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him comfort. And he felt so much relief that he forgot his sickness. So this is an example of a person who remained patient and who remained steadfast. He did not go into depression. He didn't start complaining and grumbling. And it was the example of Yunus alayhi salam, who was swallowed by the fish. So when he was swallowed, he did not complain. He realized his own mistake, and he sought forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these are examples that Allah has given in His book to show humanity that you are all the time being tested. And if you keep your vision, if you keep your goals in front of you, then no matter what happens, you will be successful. So we have to go back to the real knowledge, the knowledge that Allah has given. The knowledge of science, of course, is for our needs of this life. And that knowledge is important because human beings have needs. Whenever they have needs, they go to the experts. So the doctors and the lawyers and accountants, these are the experts of the needs of this world. But the need of the next world, they have no knowledge of that. And the experts of that are the prophets. The prophets are the experts of the unseen world. So whenever one has a need, one goes to the expert. Well, the experts here are very different. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the understanding. Wa akhir dawana in alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.